Okay. Can everybody see the document?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. This is the entrepreneurship class number 1 of 4. And of course, everybody, you guys know about me and my background. And of course, being from New Jersey. So this is kind of like back home for me. I'm going to really be stressed out come September, though. It's going to be cold. I'm not used to that cold that early. And I can't believe I can't believe this. I started here 14 years ago. Man, oh man, it goes quick. Here comes someone else. Good. Hello. We just had somebody else enter. Good. Anyway, let's get started. This is a class. This is the first of 4 classes on entrepreneurship. One of the things that I want to really kind of drive home today for this 90 minutes is dealing with gratification. That is the key to success in life and in entrepreneurship. How you handle gratification. You know, the gratification is kind of like a pleasurable emotional need for happiness, for fulfillment, right? What do you do? What we do every day is try and figure out a way to be happy or make ourselves happy or make someone else happy. But we're all dealing with gratification. And really there's 2 types. There's instant gratification and there's delayed gratification. How you handle that really dictates, and there's been studies that show this, that people who practice instant gratification versus delayed gratification have different outcomes in life and in business. Instant gratification is that you want it now. It's spending, it is a behavior that leads to being poor because you spend all your paycheck as soon as you get it. You see people all the time. I remember when I used to work, when I was a student at Morehouse, and I used to have summer jobs. There were people who couldn't wait to get their paycheck on Friday. And then on Monday, they were laughing that they were broke. And they had to wait again for Friday. That versus people that practice delayed gratification, that say, I'll wait. This is the behavior that leads to more success, whether that's wealth, whether that's success in a marriage, family, life, business, and especially owning your own business. You've got to practice delayed gratification. That is, you save some of your paycheck for a rainy day or for retirement. I mean, think about it. I mean, when I was young, first started working at Morehouse at 24, 25, I wasn't putting any money away. Now, I happen to have been saving money because I bought my first property when I was 24, but I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. But you're young, you think you're gonna live forever. And, but people, I remember my boss said, well, no, you need to set up your retirement account. I'm like, I'm 24. I can't even see 30 years old, not less 60 years old. So I didn't really, and back then, Morehouse used to match your retirement. So I'd have been pretty good shape if I had done that, but I didn't. So when we talk about gratification, one of the best known studies was done at Stanford back in the 1960s, I believe. Now they've done it many times before that, but this young researcher figured out a way to test for gratification. And he did it by doing what's called the Marshmallow Test. In the Marshmallow Test, what he would do is he took 5 and 6-year-olds, and they've done this decades. I mean, they do this about every decade. They take them, they sit them in a room by themselves with one marshmallow in front of them. You can see the picture of the young man. We got one marshmallow sitting there. And they tell him, I'll be back. And when I come back, if that marshmallow is still there, I'll give you another marshmallow. So you'll have 2. Out of the 600 children that they tried, less than a third of them could wait to get the second marshmallow. 2/3 of them, right, which is 400 of the 600 kids, ate the marshmallow before the 15 minutes was up. Then what they did is they studied them throughout life. And they found that the 200 that practiced delayed gratification had better grades, better jobs, better financial outcomes. Because they practiced, they would invest their money. They wouldn't just run out and just spend it up. Because there's always going to be a rainy day. So they've studied this and studied it, and it's pretty convincing. And that's because you've got to have a certain mindset. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and next class, we're going to actually talk about a business plan and how we get a business plan done, walk through all of those steps. But today we're dealing with this mindset of being a rich mindset versus a poor mindset. A rich mindset, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, you just come on in and ask a question. I don't. That's why I don't like to just sit here and lecture. I like if you have any questions or statements, of course you can make that. But basically, if you look at the difference between a rich mindset and a poor mindset, one of the keys I always found from my students at Morehouse were those that wanted to blame me as a professor versus those that took the responsibility of not doing their homework. Or they would always blame somebody else, like my granddaughter. She's always blaming somebody else. And I keep telling you, you got to take responsibility for your own mistakes. Do you invest or save money? Or you just spend money and then go get a credit card so you can spend more money? Do you read and study or just say, forget it, I'll just learn it as I go? One of the things is, one thing I key on with people is, do they have an attention for the future, or are they always talking about the past? Once we get to a certain age, like 50s and 60s, you get a lot of people who are always talking about the good old days. And I always tell people, you sound like my grandfather, the good old days. To me, the good old days are yet to come, right? With all this technology and stuff, I can't wait. So yeah, the past was fun. I had some good times, I had some bad times, but the past is the past. I'm looking towards the future. Second, are you net worth driven or income driven? We're going to talk about that here a little bit later. But are you worried more about how much money you make every month or every 2 weeks? Or are you worried about how much money is in your savings account? How much real estate do you own? How big is your business become? Do you think big or small? Do you embrace change, or do you fear change? That's part of that looking back in the past. Because I talk to a lot of people about change. And they talk about these young kids, how disrespectful, or all they do is play video games or all that kind of stuff. And I immediately tell them, I remember my grandfather used to complain about us watching TV all the time. He'd make us go outside and play. I said, Granddad, Gramps, it's raining outside. That's all right, go outside and play. The rain won't hurt you. So every generation says the same thing. Do you compliment people? Are you a problem solver? So all of these things, if you sit down and think just internally for yourself, what type of mindset do you have? This list. Now, you could have a combination, but just think about this, that what you really want to do is develop a rich mindset, because most people who have a, quote, rich mindset are more successful entrepreneurs. Now, when we talk about delayed gratification, there are 3 pillars to it. three sections. One is education, one is economics, and one is politics. Right? When we talk about that, how do you apply gratification to education, economics, which is like our business, the business and work, and those kind of entrepreneurship, and then politics. How do you handle politics? Education is like, for example, taking this course on entrepreneurship, reading books, now watching YouTube videos, watching TikTok videos. You know, I'm into TikTok. People always, my old friends crack on me, but I like TikTok a lot. I'm not into Instagram because I'm not a Facebook person. There's too much mess on there. But I kind of like YouTube and TikTok. And then, of course, I read articles and books all the time. But education is not just in the classroom. Let's talk about politics. If you're going to open up your own business or be an entrepreneur, you need to be able to meet people in your industry. And you need to meet politicians because politics is important. So I always talk about volunteering. What I did, again, not thinking about it, but early on, as a matter of fact, while I was at Morehouse, I was asked to coach Little League football. And then later on, I was asked to coach Little League baseball in the same league. And I coached there for 15, 17 years. And I enjoyed it, but I met so many people who later on became important in my life and business. So I always tell people volunteer. Most of my contacts politically and in the industry came from me volunteering. My daughter has joined the Rotary because she's getting ready to open up a business. And just through that, she's been able to make contacts and generate business just from joining the Rotary Club and going to meetings and volunteering for functions. And I told her, that's the key. So one of the keys in business, and we talk about delayed gratification. Yeah, I would have loved to have done other things and sometimes coach baseball with some 10-year-old kids and get beat up 10-0. That's not fun. But I did have Andrew Young, when he was mayor of Atlanta, his son was on my Little League team. And so because of that, of course, I met the mayor and a bunch of politicians and stuff because of that, which helped me later on in my business as a commercial appraiser. I got a lot of appraisal work related to the city because of that connection with the mayor. And I mean, I would have never known, it just so happened. And then I was president of the league when the Atlanta Braves in 1991, they had that miracle season where they went from last to first. And they reached out to my league, and I had a really good relationship with the Braves for a long time. And same thing with the Georgia Dome. So all these relationships came about because I was volunteering. So I recommend, if you're going to want to open up your own business, find a way to volunteer in something that you like. I love coaching Little League baseball. I want to go back and do it one day. I had so much fun, even though we get beat up a lot. I used to like to coach. I had a lot of memories. And then some of those kids went on and did, they do pretty well. I got a lot of them that are policemen now. So, they hook me up whenever I get in trouble. I like that. I tell people I haven't paid a speeding ticket in about 30 years. I got guys all over the police department now. They still call me coach. That's cool. I have no trouble with that.
It's all about networks.
Exactly. That's what this is. Build your network. I make donations, not a lot of money. I make little donations to the city council members and the state representatives and the mayor, and just so they kind of know who you are. And then I really wanted to participate in political campaigns, but I just never got around to it because I was busy with the Little League and doing other things. So it all worked out. But it doesn't matter what it is. It's just something that you're interested in. And just get involved with it. You'll find that it's fun, but you'll also make a lot of contact. That's part of that delayed gratification. I'm gonna tell you, it is really gonna help you in the future. For education, we've got both formal and informal. Of course, everybody has formal education, whether it's high school, college, grad school, technical school, and also getting specialty licenses. I try and get my son-in-law, who won't listen to me. He does what do you call it? Construction work. And I keep telling him he's getting ready to turn 40. I said, you need to get some license because you make more money and you can do less work. Because he's going to eventually get to the point where he's going to be too old to be out there with those young boys. And I can't get him to see that. But it's because I tell him, you got to sometimes get in there, take those classes. It's not fun, but you have to do it. I have some specialty real estate appraisal licenses. And it's not fun. My renewal is this month. So I'm gonna have to take 14 hours of continuing education online. It's gonna be brutal. And it's like pulling teeth, sitting there listening to stuff I already know. But I gotta keep those licenses because that's what helps me get my work. And it allows me to charge more money. So you have to have a formal education, and then you have to have that informal education. Thank goodness we got YouTube. You've got your own experiences. You read articles and books and magazines. I joined an organization for appraisers so that I can, kind of stay in connection with everybody, but also to take those classes that they have. And they have speakers that come in. So it kind of keeps me current and seeing what's going on. But the education piece is where a lot of people fail. Because early on, you may not get that push or feel that need to. I remember a lot of people used to say that they were tired of school. Once you finish high school, I'm tired of high school. I'd rather just go get a job. But you need to, in many cases, practice delayed gratification. And even if you don't go to college, go to technical school, get some specialty licenses. Because I tell people, being a person of color, your resume has to be stronger than anybody else, right? Because they're gonna take their friend or their cousin or whatever before they take you. But if you've got that specialty license or you've got that degree, they can't throw your resume away. And that's what I, in my case, I'm overqualified for most of the work that I do. And then I'm constantly on YouTube watching videos, of course, the continuing education classes I have to take, and those workshops inside of those organizations I belong to. So it's brutal sometimes, but it's something I have to do to stay current. When I was teaching, I definitely had to do it because I had to keep current for those young kids that kept coming in. So if I'm gonna teach information systems, I have to know what Instagram is. I have to know what TikTok is. I have to know all that stuff. I can't have those students coming in knowing more than me. So that's one reason I retired, because I was slowing down. It was hard for me to keep up with all that stuff. Some people say, forget delayed gratification. Just give me more money. All right? If you don't control your spending, if you don't control your expenses, I don't care how much money you get. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to be financially successful. Think of all those sports players and the millions of dollars that they make, and that they go bankrupt as soon as they're out of the league. Or sometimes they go bankrupt while they're still playing. How do you make $50 million a year and you're still broke? I mean, how do you do that? How do you make $1 million a year and you can't make ends meet? If you read articles about people, I can think of friends that make $250,000, $300,000 a year and they still can't make ends meet. How do you do that? Well, you do it because you're not controlling expenses. I put down here on the corner lottery winners. Most lottery winners go broke. Remember how you people say, I hear all the time, people say, man, if I just hit that lottery, I'm straight. You know, if I could just hit that, whatever it is, the Powerball. Or they say, like my sister, I'm going to the casino. She goes to Tampa, to the people over in Tampa, and get the gamble all the time. Says, yeah, you know, I'm gonna hit it big one day. And I tell people all the time, I tell them about Foxwood when I'm back in Atlanta, and they ask me if I gamble. I tell them, when you go to Foxwoods and you see how beautiful this place is, they're not making that on winners. They're making that on the losers. So therefore, you know what's going to happen. And the same thing with the lottery. Yeah, you can win $5 million in the lottery. But if you're not practicing delayed gratification, you can spend $5 million. Think about it. You can spend $5 million in a year between trips, cars, houses. I'm going to say a little something here, especially for the guys. You get them side chicks, they're going to take all your money. So, you know, you have to, you know, you cannot just spend. So when we talk about delayed gratification, it's not about how much money you make. It's about controlling expenses and how much money do you save. So let's say you want to run a business. You're going to start a business, whatever that business is. It's the same thing. You have to control those expenses. My daughter is getting ready to start her therapy business, and she's looking for a location to rent some space, because she has a contract with the local county, and she does drug rehab therapy. And in Cobb County, they have what's called drug court, and she's been doing the consulting work with them, and now they're going to give her the contract that helps people, first-time people that caught up in drug offenses, to go through a program that helps them get educated. Hopefully, you know, they have to come to therapy once a week and try and help them with any kind of drug issues that they may have. They even give them money to go back to school if they need to. So it's a really pretty nice, comprehensive program. But she's looking for space, about 2,500 square feet, for some therapy rooms, a couple of office spaces. And as she looks around, I tell her the key that you have to find, other than location, is the monthly rent. When you sign that lease, it's for 3 years. You need to negotiate as low a lease as possible, because that's one of your biggest expenses. Most of the employees are independent contractors. So her big expense is the lease of that space. So going in, you got to keep that lease down and negotiate hard. Every dollar you save, you know, allows you to save money for a rainy day. So and I told her that's the key. It's the expense side of it. So as I was saying earlier, it's not about how much income you make. It's about how much you keep building wealth. And you do that by controlling your expenses. Marvin had mentioned earlier in the last class how back in 2019, when we did a wealth class, we had people actually write down their budget, their expenses. And I did that at Morehouse in my class every semester for decades. And there was not one time that what I used to do is I used to tell students, to tell me what would be a good starting salary when they got out of college. I don't care what the number was. We would take that number, we divide it by 12, and then the first thing we do is take out taxes. And then we would sit there and build a budget together. And there was not one time where we ended up with a positive number at the end. We were always negative with our net income. They always overspend. I don't care if that was $100,000 a year. They would always overspend because once they saw how much money they had, they started talking about cars and apartments or houses. Before you knew it, they had spent too much money. So the key is you've got to control your expenses. Now, there's a difference between income and wealth. Income is the money that you receive from work, government benefits, or your investments. Now, this is a key, investment. If you're able to have a positive income every year and take that money and invest it, let it grow and make money for you, eventually you'll build up a cycle where your investments make enough money to pay your living expenses. A prime example was the first rental property I bought. It was a duplex. I lived in a 1-bedroom and I rented out the 2-bedroom. Back then in 1980, golly, 41 years ago, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house or apartment without utilities was $260 a month. And that $260 a month covered my mortgage and just about all my expenses. So I was living in a 1-bedroom for free, basically. But I look now, 40 years later, in that neighborhood where I paid $33,000 for that property. That property is worth about $450,000 right now because it happens to be 3 miles from Tyler Perry's movie studio. Now, who knew that back then? And the rent is outrageous. That 2-bedroom down there is renting for $2,100 a month. So if I had kept that thing, and like an old man told me when I first started investing, he said, "Man, just buy one rental property a year for 10 years, you'll be a millionaire." He was absolutely right. I could have bought 10 of them things back then. They're worth what, $450,000 each now. That's $4.5 million. He's absolutely right. Those properties would have been paid for, and they'd have been throwing off about $25,000 a month in rent. It's unbelievable, but that's your retirement right there. And when we have the real estate class, I'm going to show you how to buy. I bought that property with no money down. And I'm going to show you how to find those properties and buy it. You can buy properties for little or no money down, or the same with the stock market, or the same with cryptocurrency. You invest and hold, and they'll generate income and wealth for you. It's just unbelievable what happens. I remember if somebody told me that a 2-bedroom would go for $1,000 a month in Atlanta, I'd have told you were crazy. There's no way it would ever get that high, but it did. So we know about our income. If we can save, take our income, we subtract our expenses. If we can control our expenses, we get a positive net income. We take that positive net income and we invest it. We open up our own business. If we open up our own business, we do the same thing. That business generates income. Keep our expenses down and take that net income and invest it for a rainy day, because you never know. And that's how we build our wealth. Wealth, or net worth, it's your savings, your real estate, your retirement fund, stocks, bonds, gold, trust funds. I've got friends whose parents, when they passed, left them quite a bit of money in a trust account for them and the grandkids and stuff. So they get to have that money. I know when my mother-in-law passed, she left money for my kids, her grandkids. which helped them out when they were in college and beyond. Those kinds of things is what you want to do. I tell people, we're here on this earth. I think one of the reasons we're here on this earth is to make our offspring better off than our ancestors. And we do that by creating wealth. So that you can either pass on real estate. My mother-in-law passed on bonds. She used to save U.S. savings bonds. So, when she passed, all the kids got a bunch of savings bonds. I need to add cryptocurrency in here now, but the same thing with stocks and bonds. And you see what the stock market is doing and has been doing for a while. Same thing. So that it not only makes it easier for you in terms of your life and your cash flow, but also your kids start off in a better position. If you practice delayed gratification, it's easy to get wealthy in this country. It's easy to become successful in your own business. So one time people always laugh at me because I always drive beat up cars. And I had a student ask me one time, how come, professors, you got all this, how come you drive these beat up cars? And I usually tell them it's because I grew up, I used to drive in New Jersey and New York. And I like beat up cars because you get more respect on the roads. When I'm driving and I want to take that spot from somebody, when they see my car and how jacked up it is, they usually back up and let me go in. Because I tell them, if I don't respect my car, I don't respect yours. But I also, because I appraise in all kinds of crazy neighborhoods, I don't want somebody to look at my car and try and, steal it. And nobody's gonna steal my car. I tell people, if anything, they might put a $20 bill on my windshield or something and say, get it washed. But I do that on purpose. And the other reason I do it is I always like those people. I think I told this story on Wednesday. I was appraising some property for this guy. He's a black guy. At the time, I didn't know it till later on, but he owned 100 rental houses. And he had on some overalls and some, kind of beat up, and he had one of them pickup trucks. As a matter of fact, I was worried about whether he was gonna pay me or not. But he told me that he projects a handyman. He's like a handyman, right? And he does all the repair work on all his properties. He has a management company that manages the properties. So they actually don't know that when he comes in and meets a tenant and does the work on the property, they don't know he's the owner. They just think he's that local handyman. And he says, you'd be surprised what people will tell you about the property, about the management company. And, he's had to let management, he's had to sue and fire management companies because they were stealing money under the table. Or he had one situation where he found out that the owner of the management company was letting his girlfriend rent one of his houses at a discount. You're just talking and come to find out, she mentioned that her boyfriend was the owner of the management company, so she got a deal and all this kind of stuff. And, of course, she didn't realize that she was snitching to the boss. So I always like that. So a lot of times I like to kind of, play that certain role so I can get people to kind of talk to me. When I buy property, I never go to look at property in a nice car. I never wear nice clothes when I go look at property. I want people to think that I'm poor, I'm struggling, I'm just a black man trying to make it. Give a brother a break. And I use that as part of my negotiation strategy when I buy property. So what we want to do is and in a way, it's kind of practicing delayed gratification, right? I mean, I'm kind of looking bummy and I'm not, I don't have fancy clothes or big fancy car or nothing because I'm taking that extra money and I'm saving it to buy property. So what I want to do is, and I want you to understand is, you always pay yourself first. What I mean by that is you take out a certain percent, even in my appraisal business, I do 10% of whatever the check is I get, and it goes into a savings account. Then I use the rest of the money to pay the taxes and to pay expenses and that kind of stuff and live off of. And if you just save a little bit of money every paycheck and take those savings and then go ahead and it will convert into wealth, and then try and get as high a return on your wealth as possible, you'll do extremely well. That's why it's not difficult. In 1980, at 24, I started working at Morehouse. That's why I put it in red, if I saved just $15 per paycheck, or $30 a month, and back then, my paycheck, I only made $12,500 a year. My paycheck used to be somewhere like $795 a month. And that sounds like nothing, except I had that rental property I owned in which the tenant was paying all the expenses. So my living expenses were little or nothing. My car was old and paid for. My dad had bought me a car when I was in college, so I still driving that car. I was only living a few miles from Morehouse. So if I needed to, I could even walk or take MARTA. But it was nothing to it. It was an inexpensive Nissan car. And so my expenses were really low, but I still didn't save that much money. I could have easily saved $30 a month. So if I had saved $30 a month, just took that money and just put it in the stock market, just any stock, just put it in the stock market, or a mutual fund that followed the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? I take $30 a month and I stick it in there. I did try stocks, but I never liked it because at 24, it seemed like it took too long. I couldn't see my money grow fast enough. With real estate, I like real estate because I could put my hands on it. There was always something going around. I was always collecting rent every month. You know what I'm saying? It's different than the stock market, but doesn't matter. But if I put that money in the stock market from 1980 to 2017, it grew at 8.7%. So if I had put $300 a month in there for those, 37 years or 444 months, I would have had at 8.75%, there is a difference, but if you put it in that IRA, if I had put it in that Morehouse IRA, I would have had $90,000. The other piece of that is Morehouse matched back then. So if I put in 30, they'd have put in 30. So I wouldn't have had $90,000. I would have had $180,000, $181,000 by the time 2017 came and I left. Right? I think when I left, I had like $14,000, and that's a big difference because I really didn't. I was just kind of wasn't really doing it like I should have because I didn't think. You don't think that far into the future. 1980, I'm not even thinking about 2017. But that's how it works, and it doesn't. And even if like now, I'm getting ready to turn 65 here in a couple of weeks. You still practice it. I still practice it to this day. Now I do, especially once I turned about 40 and realized, golly, time passed you by. But I was practicing in delayed gratification in a way because I was buying real estate. When we talk about practicing delayed gratification, there is a difference between being cheap and being frugal. When you're cheap, you deny yourself. I used to have students always ask me, "Daggone, professor, if I gotta be saving money and all my whole life, when am I gonna have some fun?" And I tell them, no. You can have fun. If you practice being frugal, that's all you have to do. For example, you can still buy the car that you want. You just need to either get like maybe a demo model that the dealer has, or save your money and buy the car cash, or just maybe buy one that's just a year old or something that somebody wants wants to get rid of or got repoed. Second of all, if you're being frugal, I use coupons and discounts all the time. And that little bit of money adds up. We have our big grocery store is called Kroger's. And I use Kroger all the time for coupons and discounts, all kinds of stuff that they do. I wait for certain sales to come. My ex-wife was a master at that. She was really good of you being frugal. She was more. I learned being frugal from her, and it does make a big difference. It cuts your expenses down just enough, because normally, if you can cut your expenses 10%, you can open up your own business. You can become wealthy. You can do whatever you want. Just 10%. It used to be one of the big things is cable TV. If you're still getting cable TV and paying $150, $200 for cable every month, there's a big chunk right there. My girlfriend was paying almost $170 a month for cable, and I got it cut down to $61 a month. Because all I did is I said, all you need is internet, and we're just gonna stream everything. And she had children and grandchildren that had streaming services already. I said, all you need is the username and password and become an extra user. So that's what she did. And she saved over $100 a month right there. So it doesn't take much. You don't have to save. It's just, we don't want to deny ourselves. So we don't want to be cheap. We want to get what we want, but we want to be frugal. We want to use discounts. Now that I'm getting ready to be 65, I use that a senior discount all day long. Even when I go to Goodwill, I go on senior day. If I was telling Wednesday, this story, this is so funny, man. When I bought this, one of the few times I was maybe 26, 27, I bought a brand new car. And one of the things I do is I use what I call the black man discount. And this is how it started. I went to get a car at Nissan. And back then, they pick the car out, they have you wait all day, and then you have to go back to the finance guy. I went in there, talked to the finance guy, and he was talking about, I think I could get 6% interest or something like that. And that just came out of the blue. I said, hold on a minute, wait a minute. I said, I just read an article where because Nissan dealerships and Nissan treated Black people so bad that Black people get interest at 0%. And he looked at me and he didn't know what to say. But guess what? He came back and offered me a deal at 2%. And so I took it, and I realized after that, I said, you know what? When I go in here and negotiate on anything from now on, I'm gonna play hardball. And sometimes what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use reverse racism to pressure people and see what they do. So I go to places sometimes and I ask them not only for a senior discount, but I ask them for the black man discount just to see what they say. And you would be surprised how many come back. I think they feel off center, especially, if they're not Black. They kind of feel they don't know how to take it. So sometimes they'll give me a discount. It's just the weirdest thing. And, some people think that you shouldn't do that. But I'm like, man, listen, I'm trying to be frugal and save all the money I can for retirement. And it works. So whatever it is, in terms of getting coupons and getting discounts, whether it's being a senior citizen or part of an ethnic group, or, if I was a woman, I'd say the same thing, something about some discount because I'm female. And just see what they say. Because I tell my grandkids all the time, if you don't ask it, you don't get it. My grandson is great at it. My granddaughter is not that good. But my grandson asks for stuff free all the time. And of course, being 10 years old, a lot of people give it to him because they feel, oh, he's a cute little 10-year-old. I said, there you go. I said, you keep that up so that you can get, you can buy more or get more with less money and save the difference. Again, being cheap means that you don't buy those new sneakers or shoes or those clothes that you want. Being frugal, you can buy those sneakers that you want. You just find the coupon. When I get my oil change in my car, I only go to places where I can find the coupon. So I can get that $29.95, $39.95 oil change. I'm not paying $50 and $60 for an oil change. Now let's move financial statements. Whether as an individual or even if you have your own company, you have financial statements. You have an income statement, which is on the left, and a balance sheet that's on the right. Okay? On the income statement, that is your flow of income coming into you on a monthly basis or annual basis. However, some periodic period. Could be every 2 weeks, could be a month, could be a year. But you have your gross income minus your expenses that give you your net income. And remember, if you're practicing delayed gratification, your net income should be positive. Should be a green number, should be positive. If you're practicing instant gratification, you're not controlling your expenses, your net income is probably negative, which is gonna make you poor. You cannot run negative all the time. You can get credit cards, you can you can do all kind of stuff, but it's not gonna work. That income that you collect, right? Because you got positive income every month. I don't care if it's $5. You take that $5 and you put it into a savings account. Then we go over here to our balance sheet, right? This is gonna reflect what we pass on to the next generation. So we collect all the net incomes and they become assets, right? They're in our savings account. We then take that savings account money and we invest it to try and get a higher return. Because if you've got your money in a savings account, how much interest are they paying you? 1/2 of 1% or 1/10 of 1%. They're not paying anything for savings accounts. So you can take that money, you could buy bonds like my mother-in-law did, but they're not paying that much. But you can take that money now and open up a Robinhood account, which is what my daughters are doing, and just put $10, $20 in there every time and just let it keep growing. So you take that money. What I did is, of course, I was a real estate guy back in the early 80s. So I would save my money and negotiate and buy real estate. Now, other than assets, we have to subtract our liabilities. And this is the key. These liabilities are what you owe. Credit cards, those kind of things are what you owe. That's bad. Those are bad liabilities. Good liabilities is money that you owe to buy assets that generate additional money, like real estate, right? I go out and I get a mortgage. So I'm gonna have this piece of property, but the property is I'm gonna collect rent every month. It's gonna generate income for me. So as a matter of fact, when you buy rental property, remember, the tenant is paying the mortgage, right? When they pay that rent every month, that's what pays off the mortgage. So you really have the property for just whatever you put down. If you didn't put any money down, you got a free piece of property that's generating income for you. So it's the assets minus those liabilities, and you want good liabilities. No, you really don't even want a car note. You don't want credit card bills. If you have them, you see out there YouTube videos, there's articles all over the place of people that show you how to pay those things down and pay them off quicker. Get them out of the way and don't get any more. Save your money. I tell people all the time, if you bought real estate, which is what happened to me, when I bought my first property, it allowed me to negotiate a better deal when I bought my next car. And I only bought a couple of cars where I had a car payment. After that, I started paying cars only with cash. I just buy really nice used cars, pay cash. I don't no more car notes. Got rid of all my credit cards. I just use debit cards. That's it. And if I don't have it, then I just don't buy it. And that is help quite a bit. I don't have all that debt and stuff I used to have. One way of helping control these expenses is you've got to develop a budget. And like we did 2 years ago, we will in our other classes, we will develop a budget. When we talk about business plans next week, we're going to talk about building a budget. How do you do it? And we're going to actually look at some numbers and do an exercise. But that's for next week, because that's how we figure out what our real expenses are. Can you sit down right now and really, do you have a budget, or can you lay it out on a sheet of paper and look at all of your expenses? Forget the revenue, just look at the expenses. Can you lay them out and then sit there and figure out, how can I reduce that number by 10%? What can I do? Or 5%. Depends on the makeup of it. But what can I do? And that's what you have to figure out. And even if you can just take a couple of dollars off of it, that's a start. So when we talk about budgets, next week, that's one of the things we're going to look at. Once we do a budget and write it down, then you can go back and say, all right, now how do we clip it? What do we do here and there to try and get that number down a little? Realizing every dollar helps. Now, associated with all of this is what we call risk. Now, as some students used to tell me, what if I die before I can enjoy my gratification? Well, dying is a risk. Life is a risk. Risk is something bad could happen to me, right? Every day, something bad can happen. You live for today because tomorrow's not promised. We all know that. We deal with risk every day, driving a car, the risk getting up in the morning. You may not get up one morning. Asking someone on a date is what I talk to the students about, right? And that is, you're at a party and you see probably the prettiest lady at that party. You want to ask her to dance. I don't know if they do that anymore, but you want to ask her and talk to her, ask her out or something. There's a risk of her saying no. And I used to tell when I was younger, that used to hinder me because I would feel so bad if she said no. But now I'm like, wait a minute. If you don't ask, you don't get. So how are you going to get that young lady to accept a date unless you ask her? Now, she might say no, but if you don't ask her, she's going to say it's no anyway. So you've got this risk, and you have to begin to try and mediate it. What we eat every day is a risk. Have you ever seen that? What was it, that documentary about the guy who ate McDonald's for like 2 months straight, whatever it was, 6 months straight, some craziness, and how he went from healthy to being sick. And that the food that you eat every day is a risk. For somebody like me now with diabetes, it's the same thing. There's a lot of good food that I like, I can't eat anymore. And I gave it up, I stopped. My brother-in-law did not stop. And we were the same age, and he passed from diabetes complications in 2018, 3 years ago. So what was he, 62? I mean, 61 or 62. He died from his diabetes. And I used to try and get him, say, man, you gotta make these changes. And he just wouldn't do it. So we deal with risk every day. Every decision we make has a risk, and the chance of something bad happening. So therefore, delayed gratification has a risk. And I say that because that's why some people come to me and say, that's why I don't practice delayed gratification. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I'm going to live my life the way I want to every day, no matter what. All right. That's kind of a fatalistic look on life. But if you think about it, for some people that live in certain neighborhoods, that have certain backgrounds, they don't believe they're going to live that long. So therefore, that's why they don't practice delayed gratification. It's instant gratification because they don't know how long they're going to be around. They've seen so much death in their family or death in the neighborhood They just don't know it. I have a good friend who's a doctor. He's older than me, probably about 69. And he had a friend who he went to college with and graduate school. And that's how he was. He came from a really bad neighborhood, and he didn't think he was going to make 30 years old because nobody that he knew, he didn't know of any men that lived that were 30 years old or older. Well, he's now 60.